we encourage all youngsters to participate.
I thank Dr. Tirumurugan sir for allowing me to present this case, which I prepared for poster, but I couldn't do it on time. So this is an interesting case which we saw in our hospital. Next slide. So this is a 75 days old baby, came with hurried breathing since birth. And there was cough for 7 days and there's fever for 2 days. The history of poor feeding was there. Child was delivered by normal delivery. Birth weight was around 2.6 kgs and there was no NICU admissions or significant postnatal history. History of oil installation in, once in a week for past 2 months for fast breathing and cold. On examination, baby was tachypneic. There was reduced air entry on the left side hemithorax. Other systems were normal. On oral, on IV antibiotics and nebulizations, and child was started on HHFNC after admission. But baby didn't show any clinical improvement even after 48 hours. Next slide. So this is a child X-ray, which is taken in 48 hours duration. We can see there is left side complete haziness noticed. After the antibiotic therapy and HFNC, the X-ray almost remains the same. Next slide. So we decided since was child was on HFNC, we thought we'll do ultrasound guided aspiration. It was turned out to be milky fluid. And since we thought it could be a chyle and we did lymphoscintigraphy, there was no scan evidence of lymphatic leakage into the pleural cavity was noted. Child was inserted ICD and gradually the sickness got relieved and shifted to ward. Next slide. Previous slide. So the pleural fluid triglycerides were more than 900 and there was ICD was placed and started on octreotide infusion, aminoven and intravenous lipid. The first day's drain was around 1 liter for 24 hours. Second day was 650 ml. Third day 430. Subsequently on 10th day it was less than 100 ml. And drain was removed on 24th day. So chylothorax, there are many causes like congenital and traumatic. Congenital, we all know the trisomies and lymphangiectasias, atresias of thoracic duct. The traumatic cause associated with surgeries for excision of lymph node or congenital heart disease, vascular ring and diaphragmatic hernia. Other catheterization, subclavian vein catheterization, blunt force or penetrating trauma to the chest, even child abuse. And associated with tumors, neurogenic lymphomas, Wilms and ovarian tumors, and some miscellaneous causes and staphylococcal discitis. So we started on octreotide, which is a somatostatin that includes, it has got effects on GAT. It is a synthetic long-acting somatostatic analog. Mechanism of action is not clear, but it may cause reduction in intestinal blood flow by vasoconstriction of the splanchnic circulation with the reduction of lymphatic fluid production. Alternatively, the lymphatic vessels may have somatostatin receptors and their stimulation could result in a decreased lymphatic flow. These agents are also decrease gastric motility and decrease the volume of gastric, pancreatic and biliary secretions, which in turn decreases lymphatic flow. So we started on octreotide infusion along with fat-free diet with addition of medium chain triglycerides. Medium chain triglycerides with the saturated fatty acids of 8 to 12 carbon chain lengths are absorbed directly into the portal venous system, bypassing the lymphatic drainage. The parenteral nutrition will be required if chyle output is more than 1 liters per day in adults, or if patients are not responding to a modified oral or enteral regimen, or if they having increased chyle output on enteral nutrition. So calories, electrolytes, and volume must at least match the loss in chyle output. Surgery should be considered when in these kids when medical management has been failed to reduce the chyle flow and allow the healing of duct. There is no consensus on timing of surgery. Some recommend surgery should be performed if effusion persists for more than 2 weeks, and other like volume is more than 100 ml per year of age in children as an indication for surgery. So most recommend an extended period of 3 to 4 weeks of conservative management before proceeding to the surgical treatment. So this child is almost like 3 to 4 weeks with nutrition, proper nutrition and calorie management. We could remove the drain on 24th day, and child was doing well on follow-up. But this child didn't undergo any surgical procedures. We don't know the exact cause, but this case turned out to be incidental findings. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The next 3-minute thriller is from Government Dharmapuri Medical College and Hospital, Dr. Revati.
Good evening to one and all present here. First of all, I thank the organizing committee and judges for giving this opportunity to present here. I am Dr. Revati from Government Dharmapuri Medical College. My topic of presentation, an interesting case where the child accidentally fell into the trauma ward. It's a 7 years old, developmentally normal female child admitted in accident trauma ward with Ali's history of accidental fall while returning from the school on the way, followed by loss of consciousness after some time. History of vomiting present, history of breathlessness present, no history of fever, no history of loose stools. Parents denies the history of any poisonous bite or any drug or toxin intake. Not a known case of seizure disorder, no other associated COVID like tuberculosis, heart disease or asthma. Child was initially taken to the private hospital and referred here. As the parents given the history of fall, so the child was admitted in the trauma ward. The child was unresponsive with severe respiratory distress and shock. So started on O2 under face mask, IV fluid started. Initially, the saturation was 56% in rumor. Surgeon thought of head injury and ordered CT brain. As the child was very sick, the call were given to the DAPP. The case was seen by the DAPP. The assessment of the child, airway is unstable, frothy secretions present, respirate 50 per minute, severe retractions present, bilateral coarse crepitations present, saturation is 80% with O2, heart rate 100 per minute, pulse volume 3+1+, CRT more than 2 seconds, liver span is 12 centimeter, BP is 110/80. The child was unresponsive, posturing present, pupils pinpoint and not reacting to light, eyes in mid position, tone was abnormal. On arriving the physiological status of the child, the airway was unstable, breathing, impending respiratory failure, circulation, tachycardia and cardiogenic shock present, disability ALOC. Coming to the investigation, to rule out hypoglycemia, CBG was done, it was normal. To rule out snake invasion, WBCT was done, it's normal. Routine CBC was done. To rule out hepatic and renal encephalopathy, RFT and LFT was done, it's normal. To rule out electrolyte imbalance, serum electrolytes was done, it's normal. Coming to the management, the airway was stabilized and positioned. Oral and nasal suctions was given. O2 given through the Jackson circuits. Child was in impending respiratory failure, so planned for intubation. Baby had a cardiogenic shock, so IV fluid NS 5 ml per kg bolus given, followed by dobutamine 10 mg per kg per minute started. Injection atropine 2 doses given for pinpoint people, and injection ceftriaxone started because of infective etiology. We thought of. With this initial stabilization of ABC, child saturation, respiratory distress, and shock start improving. The child was not intubated. The child was shifted to PICU from the trauma ward because CT brain was normal. The importance of history taking even after the patient started responding to a treatment can bring surprises. That after 24 hours of admission, the child general condition improved and that child consumed accidentally cyphalothrin. The cyphalothrin poisoning, the clinical features are increased secretions with the features of pulmonary edema, unresponsiveness, convulsions, and features mimic OPC poisoning. The take-home message is it implies the importance of clinical assessment. The treating the physiological status can stabilize and even save the baby, giving us the time to reach out for the etiology. Any unresponsive child to rule out 5 Ds, that is trauma, toxin, any poisonous bite, cerebrovascular accidents, and seizures. In this case, cyphalothrin intoxication should be considered as a DD in patient presenting to PICU with the future suggestive of mild form of OPC. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Very nice presentation.
I next call upon Dr. Fatima Lofer from the Institute of Social Pediatrics, Stanley Medical College.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Fatima from Stanley Medical College. So my 3-minute take is on a twisted tale of vomiting with pink blood. So familial chylomicronemia is a single gene defect which affects clearance of ApoB containing lipoproteins. It is an autosomal recessive disorder with an incidence of 1 in 1 million. Human GPIH-BP1 gene is a 184 amino acid that codes for the lipoprotein lipase, which is deficient in this syndrome. We present a case with who presented with vomiting, and this child turned out to have this mutation positive. And the most serious clinical sequelae was pancreatitis, and this child also had this complication. Abdominal pain and fatigue are the most common clinical symptoms. So this case is a 4-year-old female child who presented with complaints of vomiting for 3 days every month, and she had this complaint for the last 8 months. There was no history of fever, jaundice, or altered stools. Her development is normal, and there was no family history of any similar illness or storage disorders. On examination, she was alert, active, and she was thin built. There was no evidence of xanthoma or any visible swelling. And per abdomen, her liver was soft with a liver span of 6 centimeters, and spleen was palpable 2.5 centimeters below the left costal margin. We had a differential diagnosis of cyclical vomiting syndrome, acute gastritis, and acute pancreatitis initially, but after withdrawing sample, we also had hypercholesteremia as a differential diagnosis. So the investigations, her blood had a pink color appearance, and since she had abdominal pain, ultrasound abdomen was done, which showed nephrocalcinosis. Her CBC was normal, urine routine. She had calcium oxalate crystals, which accounted for the nephrocalcinosis. Her renal function test and liver function test were normal. Serum amylase was normal, ruling out pancreatitis. And CT abdomen also showed nephrocalcinosis. And at that time, the pancreas was normal. 24-hour urine calcium was mildly elevated. Her lipid profile showed elevated levels of triglycerides, and the lipoprotein A was low normal. This was the lipemic plasma of the child. And so the timeline, the child presented with vomiting, and day 2, she had lipemic sample, and she had elevated triglycerides and cholesterol. Her lipoproteins were altered. So with this clinical history, we had sent a genetic analysis. The child again got readmitted on day 30 with persistent abdominal pain. So we did an MRCP, which showed evidence of pancreatitis, and hence insulin was started. On day 45, her genetic analysis report was reported with this positive mutation of GPIH-BP1 gene. And this was her MRCP showing evidence of pancreatitis. So course during hospital stay, initially she was managed with IV fluids and antiemetic drugs. And Since she had recurrent abdominal pain, we did an MRCP and she had pancreatitis, so insulin was started. After starting insulin and dietary modifications, now the child has no further episodes of vomiting and abdominal pain, and now she started gaining weight. Familial hypertriglyceridemia is a fatal disease that demands early diagnosis and treatment, and pancreatitis is the most serious comorbidity resulting from high triglycerides. So the goal of familial chylomicronemia syndrome is to maintain the triglyceride levels from 750 to 880 mg per dl, and due to